Good evening. Welcome to the Cabarrus County Board of Education work session for Tuesday, September 3rd, 2019. I'll call the meeting to order. Board members will take a motion to adopt the agenda as presented.
Moved. Second.
Mr. Harrison made the motion. Mr. Walter made the second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion passes 7-0. We'll start with our reports, but first I want to thank Deputy Daniel Adcock from Mount Pleasant High School for being here. He is their school resource officer. Thank you. Okay, Dr. Lauder, we'll start with you.
All right, so the first thing is just the quarterly forecast to try to give you guys an idea of what's coming up in October, November, and December. So I'll go over those, and if for some reason, well, they're up on the screen, if there's something that you want added or want to ask what's missing, we'll be glad to tell you. But there'll be recognitions for principal and assistant principal of the year in October, the audit report for this fiscal year ending June in 2019, construction updates if we need them, policies pretty standard. All the school improvement plans will come to you guys because technically you have to approve those, and then a report on transportation, just kind of an overview of transportation so you guys will get an idea of that. For November, the summer 2019 retest planning, we retested this past summer, so we plan to do that again. Again, construction updates and policy. Last November, we'll do again the school performance recognition. So as we get the state data in and bring forward schools and their teams to recognize them just like we did last year. And then we're going to have some other department spotlight. In December, again, budget amendments, construction updates, and policy, and then a child nutrition report, again, just an overview of child nutrition. So if there's something missing there or something that you desperately want us to try to cover, then please let us know. We'll try to do that or account for it.
When do we get the magnet school reports or the program choices report?
Can you turn on your mic, please?
I was going to say, I believe that's in,
You say it. I thought I heard you. Yeah, so Ms. Reimer said that was in February because we'll have a lot of the, is what Alan is saying, because then we'll have a lot of the choices and know kind of what everybody's choosing. So I think that was when we're shooting for next quarter.
Dr. Lauder, the state will release the school grades to the state Department of Public Instruction. Will we receive a report on those numbers in October, or what's the timeline or schedule for that, please?
Yes, so the state board, again, if we have all of our dates right, they will actually, that will be public tomorrow. Will be officially been when it will be there, so we will plan on releasing that information, but we want to get the information and see how we are in line with everybody else. So we can do it in that October to bring forward. Again, then we would have school recognition in November. So I guess we don't have that on there. We can put that on for October, right?
That's not necessarily a request so much as whatever is appropriate.
I think what we had discussed is that we can definitely share that information because it will be released. But again, it's released tomorrow, but be validated in October,
Right.
Which is why we wanted to wait. I mean, it's already validated, but it has to be approved by the State Board of Education. It has to sit with them for a month. So it'll be released to them and the world tomorrow, has to sit with them, and then they vote to approve it in October. So I believe that's why we wanted to present it to you in October, but we can definitely send something to the board.
Does that make sense? I know it's a little odd because, again, we actually have it, then it has to be validated internally, then the state board has to receive it, then they have to validate after a month. So a lot of times it's been out for 6 weeks before they say this is official, and that's why we said we weren't going to recognize the school performance recognition because then it would all be formalized. I know that's a little strange, but it's just how they do it.
Any other requests? Okay, thank you, Dr. Lauder. Oh,
Yeah.
Mr. Schmicker.
I was wondering if we could get a report on our workers' comp and employee health and safety and how we're doing with just how our employees are not getting injured, hopefully, and if we're doing pretty well as compared to what the regular state standards look like and how we're doing as a district, just to, because we don't get those regularly, so I thought it would be a good time for us to kind of get an insight as to where we are on that. And I think you've got a little bit of change in that area over the last year and a half or so, and so I'd like to see how that looks. So,
Okay, I know Mr. Schultz in the opening day report's going to talk a little bit about that, but we'll talk this week about when would be best to try to plug in there and do a report for.
Okay, anything else? Okay, now we'll move on to agenda item 3.02, the back to school update with Mr. Brian Schultz.
Thank you very much. So it's my pleasure to bring to the board and audience the back to school report. And since opening of schools is very much a collaborative effort, but there's a large scale impact to auxiliary services and what the auxiliary team does to launch schools. So we'll reflect some of the cross-functional departments, but we'll spend the bulk of the time talking about some of the auxiliary services and the work that they did to prepare for those the opening day and opening week of school. So just starting off with Kids Plus, looking at the enrollment, almost 1,600 students enrolled in Kids Plus, and you can see how that breaks down between AM and PM and middle school, and just receiving multiple reports about how it was one of the smoothest openings. I think, you know, the Kids Plus operates as a separate enterprise financially, although it is a collaborative engagement between the site coordinator, the administration on the team, and the teachers, and making sure that we get the students in the Kids Plus line, not on the bus when they should be in the Kids Plus line, so that, or in the walker area. So that sounds simple, but there's lots of logistics when you have multiple students at a school going in different directions for dismissal. So that dismissal procedure and the protocols were just really, really smooth. In terms of
is that offered at every school? That's not offered at every school.
Kids Plus is offered at all the elementary schools, but only 2 of our middle schools. And that's really been based on need. They tried it at all of the middle schools and then really found it viable at 2. In terms of the facilities management, you see some of the system-wide maintenance projects that we delivered on, and that was applying 16,850 gallons of wax in all of the buildings. All of our facilities were treated for fire ants, and then completed some plumbing projects really in the restrooms to update those. And again, those aren't, you know, fancy, luxurious types of things, but very functional and really important in making sure our schools run really, really well. In terms of upgrades, some of these items were ones that were approved by the board in terms of like the HVAC and the J and Freeze renovations, but then there are other things, just upgrading outdated and worn custodial equipment, renovating some of our exceptional children's rooms, replacing stairways, replaced a fire alarm system, clean ducts. So just multiple things going on in terms of upgrades. In terms of our facilities management, we look at our mobile unit installation. We installed 14 mobile units. And when we do that, that's a full bill. It's electrical, water, sanitary, sewer. We have to move fencing, some of the safety fencing that we have, and then technology comes in behind that and installs cameras and fire alarms and all of those things. So that's another collaborative effort that's really a really huge project to pull off during the summer, and we go right up to almost the opening of schools and making sure that those are ready, but we definitely got that pulled off for this school year.
Yeah, Mr. Schultz, I just wanted to publicly give kudos to Chuck Taylor's team with the mobile units. I know I had sent him an email on this, but I was in a mobile unit last year that definitely needed some renovations, some repairs, and they renovated it, I guess last fall sometime, and then to see it again recently, it's amazing. I couldn't believe that they could take that one structure and do everything they did to make it better, from painting and skirting to new decking for the ramp.
Right.
All kinds. I mean, it was a great use of money as opposed to buying a new unit.
Yeah, it is really, really amazing what Mr. Taylor and his team do with the mobile units. I mean, I've obviously seen lots of mobile units in different districts in my day, and you can definitely see when Chuck has had his signature on a mobile unit. They look like, I was with Amber Diggins, our Kids Plus director at Weddington Hills today, and I took her into the modular out there, and she was blown away. by how great those modulars look out there. So
So these 14, are they new? Are these the new mobile units?
they are new to us.
So,
New, and most of them were purchased as used and then renovated, upgraded. The new roofing systems, guttering systems, landscaping that goes around it. So they've all been upgraded, and some have almost just been completely rebuilt, which Mr. Taylor finds is sometimes a more cost-effective way to having some great mobile units in our district.
well, they work their magic to get them ready for school. Do we have a list of the schools that they've been installed at?
We do. So Weddington Hills, Harrisburg, R. Brown McAllister, Patriots, and I believe Cox Mill was one that they were upgrading. So all the schools, you could probably almost guess where the mobile units were going in based on growth. And then in terms of grounds, I know you all are looking at that little fox down there. So we did a lot of landscaping, and these guys just worked some countless hours, and you all know how hot it's been this summer, and they just really worked hard to get this work done. But repairing driveways, restriping parking lots, installing sidewalks, working on a lot. We have a lot of interior courtyards that they worked on and refreshed. And yes, we removed one fox from Jan Robinson High School, and no, he was not a threat to anyone, and he was removed and restored in a new home. And then in terms of risk management, so Dan Collins, he's has been working with our science specialists and looking at that chemical hygiene plan that we have in all our middle school and high school science departments, looking at evacuation plans with the physical therapy department, and you've been seeing his updates in the weekly update that we do, working with Duke on the evacuation of the nuclear site, all those different things that Dan has come on board in the last 2 months and really hit the ground running. With school nutrition, we processed about 11,000 students as of the end of last week for free or reduced lunch price meals. We do have, I know this was highlighted previously, but wanted to lift that up again. There are 3 schools participating in the fresh fruit and vegetable grant this year. And essentially what that is it's exposing, it's filling a nutrition gap that many students at our most impoverished schools have. And so it's filling in that nutrition gap, but it's also exposing students to like what fruit really looks like, and maybe some uncommon fruit, a dragon fruit or a star fruit, kiwi, things like that aren't just always sold at the cash register of the local convenience store. So it's really exposure and the nutrition piece as well. And with technology, we had multiple projects going on this summer, but phones, intercoms, so all those things I mentioned before going into the mobile units. We got cameras being installed at the Mount Pleasant Central football fields. I thought that was appropriate to put on there for it is football season. And then all the instructional technology facilitators were trained on new district software. I highlight one of the software pieces was called Dino, and it's kind of a monitoring and management for teachers. So teachers are able to see the activity level of their students on their devices in their classroom, and allows them to ensure that students are utilizing those devices for instructional purposes. Also in technology, the following newly leased student and front office devices were delivered. So you just look at these numbers. This was all done before the first day of the first student day. You just take a look at the thousands of devices that were installed and prepared and ready, for fingers to hit them the first day. And this was the first time, based on the recall of the staff on hand, that school-based devices were installed by the first day of class, and that does include those front office computers as well. And transportation, so the numbers on the runs that we're making as of last week, we're making approximately 9,100 stops a day, traveling approximately 29,000 miles a day, and then transporting approximately 26 students a day. And that's, just to put that in perspective, that's equal to the city population of Asheboro or Kernersville. So we're transporting cities every day to and from school. And then from a curriculum instruction perspective, Dr. Hill wanted to highlight that all curriculum documents have been updated and available in Canvas for teachers. And she's really modest. I mean, they did a lot of professional development and worked really, really hard to make sure that the teachers had the knowledge that they needed and all the documents that were there ready for them to use the first teacher workday. And also from accountability, as we discussed earlier, that has been received and it will be reviewed by our State Board of Education tomorrow, and then we will lift that up to this Board of Education in the following month. Dr. Hill, is there anything you want to add on that? Okay. Then from a human resources perspective, and again, this is just a minuscule piece of what Glenda does on a day-to-day basis and the work that she does, but it does represent a mass body of work to hire 232 newly hired certified staff, and then we had, of those 232, we had 76 of those were beginning teachers, and then the really outstanding number, Glenda, and hats off to you, had 4 vacancies on that first day, and that's pretty amazing considering how many staff we had and how much rotation we had during the summer. So congratulations on that, Glenda. So any questions for you on the opening of school? One thing I will add before questions is that we did a debrief after action review. It's kind of a military term, but we did that for the first 2 days of school with cabinet and facility staff, and really was amazing how few issues we had. And we did have some issues. I mean, the transportation ran long at a couple of schools. We had to find a couple of students that were not in the place that their parents thought they were, and but all the stories came out really, really positive, and really by about Wednesday, most of the transportation, I'd say 99.8% of the transportation routes were running almost perfectly, and we still have a couple tweaks that we're making this week because we're still accounting for who's riding the bus and who's not, because most of the time more people sign up for the bus than actually ride it. So we're just leveling out those numbers and making sure that we have the ridership the way that is the most efficient for our district. So that after action review went really, really well. In fact, we had it scheduled for Wednesday as well, and we decided that it was not needed. So we canceled the after action review on Wednesday. From all perspectives, I think the start of school was really, really smooth this year, and I'd like to thank the auxiliary services team and as well as my cabinet level colleagues and their teams for such a great start.
That sounds good. I know I didn't get too many emails or calls. Some years it's worse than others about the bus transportation, but I think it's important for the community to see those numbers and just how much work is involved to accomplish that. So board members, any questions?
Well, I enjoyed helping the car rider line at Weinkauf.
Thank
on
you.
the first day of school, that was a lot of fun.
Thank you.
Thank you for the report. I think it's good information for the public to have on how we're doing.
Yeah, and thank you for requesting it too. It's always fun to brag on the team.
And Mr. Schultz, just a fun fact, Kids Plus in 2013-14 was only 856 students in Kids Plus, so it's
Wow.
all but doubled since that time. Thanks to the staff.
Yeah, thank you.
So anything else? Okay, thank you, Mr. Schultz. Next, we'll go on to 3.03 for the safety presentation. I think Mrs. Amy Lauder is going to cover that. Welcome.
Thank you. So since January, I've been operating in the role of Director of Student Safety and Wellbeing. My role focuses on the physical and the psychological safety of our students. The work in this area is ever evolving, ever changing, and the success of it is dependent upon the collaborative work of our staff, our students, our parents, and our community. Tonight we'd like to showcase several of the measures in place in our schools this year through a safety video that highlights some of our work. You'll hear our students and staff talking about safety plans and audits, safety checks, specialized instructional support personnel, which are our counselors, social workers, psychologists, school nurses, and then also our school resource officers, training of staff and students, and the social emotional learning and supports available to our students. We hope this safety video is an informative manner in which to share with you our work around student safety and well-being. Thank you.
At Cabarrus County Schools, as soon as the day begins, we know we are surrounded by people who care about keeping us safe. Our bus drivers transport thousands of students to more than 40 different schools every day.
Our schools have safety plans and procedures in place to keep us safe. Efforts like the new random district safety checks, emergency drills, and building surveillance are all in place to help maintain our safety.
We know that there are safety plans in place, but really, it's all of the people behind the plans at the school, district, or community level that prioritize our safety every day.
As teachers, our roles extend to helping our students understand best safety practices. Our drill procedures have been updated to include conversations and debriefing with our classes after drills to answer their questions and address any concerns they have.
There are rules in our classrooms to keep us safe. Kids aren't the only ones with rules. Anyone who comes to visit our school has to check in at the front office.
No matter if it's in a classroom, outside, or at lunch, we know that if we see something unsafe or out of place, we can say something.
It's pretty awesome that we have a school resource officer at every campus. Each school also has a psychologist, social worker, and school counselors equipped and prepared to support a variety of student needs.
Our entire school staff is trained annually by our school resource officer, and we are updated throughout the year by our administration. Our schools participate in safety audits every year, where a multidisciplinary team from the district ensures that we are following safety procedures.
We have a nurse at every school in case we get sick or hurt. There are even people who keep our buildings and playgrounds safe.
We could apply what we learned about staying safe to our lives outside of school too. We learned about making healthy lifestyle choices and how to be safe on the internet.
As a student, I'm grateful that our district not only encourages us to be our best, but also prioritizes our safety.
Knowing that Cabarrus County Schools has a district safety committee that is proactive and engaged reassures me as a teacher and parent of the level of commitment the district has to keeping students and staff safe.
Every day, 33,000 students spend their days in our schools. While teaching them is our business, keeping them safe is our priority. In partnership with our community safety professionals, our district is able to stay informed about the newest safety resources and participate in training exercises. If we find ourselves in an emergency situation, understand that our first priority is the safety of our students and staff. Once the situation is resolved, we'll communicate as quickly as we can. This year, we will begin random safety checks using metal detectors at our middle and high schools. An anonymous tip line is also available as a tool to support safety efforts. Our goal is to ensure that anyone who sees something can say something. You can find this information and ways you can support safety efforts on our district safety website and on the mobile app. Safety will remain our priority today and every day so that we can see you tomorrow.
See you tomorrow.
See you tomorrow.
See you tomorrow. See you tomorrow.
So we hope that gave you a good overview.
That was excellent.
Thank you. There's a district team that put that together, so I'm very grateful for all their
So
work.
who gets to view the video?
So the video will be made available tomorrow on our website. Our schools will be sharing that with the students. It'll be, again, available to the community.
Via the website,
posted
or is it
on
going
the
to be on our
website.
public television station channel?
I think it's supposed to be aired, yes, Ronnie's saying a couple things. Web, social media, and TV 21.
And it was also played at every open house as well.
So I thought it was fantastic. I mean, it's just the right level and not too long that people will watch it.
Well, you know, there we go. You know, each year at our annual conference, school board conference, you know, we're supposed to maybe send something, submit a project, you know, from the county, from our area. I think we should submit that from our county, from our...
Yeah, I think that's really for student-made videos, but we could check on it.
No, not for a video. I'm talking about our project from our safety committee. That would be something would be helpful for everybody across our state, something that each school board could do. But that was really an idea from our safety committee, was put together from our safety committee.
Did we do this
And that
in-house?
could
Did we
be
do
a
this in-house?
project.
Was this an in-house thing? So we have a
Yes.
lot of talent in-house to make this.
A lot, yes.
But I mean, that was put together, our safety committee come up and said, hey, let's
Yeah.
think about doing that at our safety committee, but this would be
Well, we can look
helpful.
into it. Like I said, I think the overall video contest of sorts is student
Well, they
oriented,
have
but
that, but I'm saying,
Yeah.
our project, it
We'll
was
look into
something
it.
that we put, but I mean, it would be helpful for all, you know, for everybody across the state. This was an idea, though, that was generated by our safety committee, for us to come up with a way to get the idea across, and a video was one of the things, but then the information, we all collaborated in what we wanted to see, and this was just one way to put it out. But the safety committee come up with the idea to basically do this, and I mean, it would be very helpful, and this was just one way to do it. But I think it's something we should submit as an idea, so
okay.
how we could
We'll look
do it.
into it. Anyone else have any comments? Okay. Thank you, Ms. Ladder. And the next agenda item 3.04 is regarding digital life, and Dr. Crystal Hill and Erica Willard will share the information with us.
Good evening. Right now, we live in a digital world where access to technology is just everywhere, and it's basically essential. So it's really interesting that even in the most impoverished areas of the world, folks have access to technology. So in my house, in the Hill household, we have rules about the use of technology. So for example, all devices have to be in my room by 8 o'clock every night. I have the right to check in with your technology at any time. Let me see your social media, let me see your history. Nothing better be deleted or gaps in your history for your technology. But as a parent, I'm constantly having to work with Madison and Morgan and talk to them about safety online, things like don't follow anybody that you don't know, don't accept a friend request from someone that you don't know in real life, you don't know if it's the real person. So traditionally in education, we've taught good citizenship, so things like responsibility, kindness, self-control. But in a digital world that we live in right now, it's really important that we teach students how to responsibly navigate technology. So last January, when we had our long Saturday board work session in January, we had a little bit of a discussion about digital citizenship, the use of technology, and it actually ended up in our strategic plan. So at that point, I asked Erica Willard to begin investigating opportunities and options that we can teach digital citizenship and safety K-12 in Cabarrus County schools. So we've selected Neptune Navigate. It's been reviewed by multiple groups, and she's going to share our plan with you tonight.
Good evening. So, as Dr. Hill said, we are very excited to found a product that we think will fill a need that we have, which is teaching our students how to live responsibly in the digital world and having a responsible digital life. What we've decided to do is use this product called Neptune Navigate. It provides age-appropriate content through monthly modules for our students delivered by people in our school. Our K-5 experience, our elementary students will have teacher-led experiences each month, while our secondary students will have more of an online self-paced, but still being in school with teachers. All of this will be able to be tracked via the teachers in elementary who have delivered it, as well as an online dashboard for students, because there'll be a check for understanding. Each module will be released each month. Each module will contain a 5 to 10 minute video, a different video for the different grade bands, and then interactive readings to accompany the topic, as well as the age group. The readings actually, in my opinion, are highly engaging, and they're interactive, where students will have to interact with the content while working through them, as well as with the teacher, or if they're doing the online self-paced ones. Each month there's a theme. the August and September are grouped together, and April and May are grouped together. So there's actually 8 modules for the year. Each module should take around 30 minutes to complete. For me, I think the benefit here is if I'm a parent of a first grader, a fourth grader, a seventh grader, or an 11th grader, I know that in October, all of my children are going to get cyberbullying content. Therefore, I know what to talk to them about. In addition to the student and teacher piece, there's the parent piece. Each month, we will release parent activities from this company as well as other parent information, so that we have a good, strong parent focus. And that will be on our digital life page. So on this particular page, we have we'll have a link to the parent resources for the month. In addition to just below that, we'll have some Common Sense Media, which is another resource which allows parents to visit that website and put in their age and type of media for their age child to determine what's recommended for them. What we're going to do now is just show you 1 minute of one of the possible parent videos that will be available on the website for our parents.
Hi parents, I'm Christina Jontra, Chief Navigator at Neptune Navigate. This month, we're going to be talking to your kids about one of the most important topics we'll cover, cyberbullying. Cyberbullying occurs when someone deliberately and repeatedly uses some form of technology to harass, intimidate, belittle, or threaten someone else. The key parts of this definition are deliberately and repeatedly. There's the intent on the part of the bully, and they do it more than once. If someone's rude or mean to someone just one time, that probably doesn't rise to the level of cyberbullying. But here's the thing. 6 out of 10 kids in the U.S. are targets of cyberbullying, which means there's a good chance your child could be a target.
So that's just an example of one of the parent clips that will be available. In addition to that, there will be tips for discussions that parents can leave with their students at home. There's also a social media component in which we'll be able to share with parents what the topic is for the month. So what questions do you have about that? Yeah.
I'll jump in. Do any of the modules for the parents or the age bands of the students make suggestions about actionable steps they can take to remedy cyberbullying? I mean, to what extent does it encourage at the appropriate age and through the right medium to contact the SRO officer at a school or talk to you? Is it all just informational, or does it say, here's what you can do, here are ways that you can empower yourself to take action?
All right, so I'm going to give you an example from the cyberbullying module that we have so far for grades 9-12. One of the things it says to do is block a cyberbully on social media. And so after you watch the video, there is directions on if you want to block a bully on Instagram, on Facebook. It's inside the module for the students. So yes, in addition to that, like for younger students, I mean, because they'll be doing it with a teacher, the teacher will be able to help them with that if they're on social media or if they're using those things at a young age.
Mr. Walter?
Go ahead.
You go ahead.
Thank you. So, Erica, you said each month they'll be presenting something like the cyberbullying is in October, and this will be presented 1 week, or will this be like a flow of the month and they'll be repeated? Because once and done is not really going to bring it into the mind to become a habit type of thing. So how will we reinforce the good behaviors that we're asking them to project, and also to provide them opportunities to give feedback, because there'll be lots of questions as they go through the month, I would expect, for different students, and so how would we support them as they go on this journey to learn about these good behaviors that we're trying to teach?
So once the module is released, it's open. So they will be released each month. But after it's been that month, you have access to that throughout the rest of the year. So people can continue to come back to that and come back to that. And one of the committees that we talked about this, they wanted that to make sure that was possible so that people could use it to remind them, hey, by the way, you remember we watched this and you know this now. So we'll have access to it throughout the year, and then if it's something that we decide is useful, then we'll have access to it each year.
And kind of along the similar lines is, how are we delivering this to the upper grade students? I mean, is it a health class and they're only going to get it for 6 months? How do you continue it throughout the year?
So as part of this process, we presented it to principals in each grade, each band, elementary, middle, and high, and asked how they would like to do it. Elementary will be doing it through specials, probably guidance, media, technology. Middle school is going to be doing it through health classes because they all have that. And
was it a year health class, or it's not a year health?
It's probably a year-long class, but they may have to do September and October. It depends on when they actually hit their classes.
If it's not released, they can't view it, right?
Correct, but they could do it after it's released. So if they have help in November, they can do it in November. But if they don't have help till December, they can do November in December. Once it's open, it's
open.
Once
it's open. Okay, so not everyone's going to get everything.
Correct, and we found that with high school too, because they're year-long. They're not year-long classes; they're semester classes.
Some are and some aren't.
Yeah, so it's either through homeroom or some sort of block of time.
Okay, and I am interested in that. I like the fact that we have a parent option or parent piece to this. And I think that's important. Is there a better way we can communicate that? Can we use a ConnectEd to promote this as well?
Yes, I am writing a ConnectEd for each principal, then to deliver to send out to their own
school
schools.
basis instead of, because
yes.
You're sending them all back to the county website, aren't you?
Yes.
Okay, and then the last part, what is the cost for that, for the program?
The cost is $3,900 for the year, which averages
For the whole
out-
system?
For the whole system is about 12 cents a kiddo.
Okay, no brainer.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
And we don't need to approve it because of the low amount of money, right? Okay. Any other questions or comments?
And you said I asked that very same question, and you said that we were using federal money for that. Did you not tell me that?
Yes, we're using Title IV, and so that has a component that has to be used for technology, but it's basically for any type of student needs. It could be student achievement or well-rounded students.
Yeah, I was wondering if our Teacher of the Year would like to comment on having this introduced into the curriculum.
Well, as a teacher and a parent, I think
Can you turn your microphone? Yeah, thanks.
as a teacher and a parent, I think it's something that our children need to be exposed to because they're going to be using that technology without a doubt, and so it's important that we are being proactive and teaching them those digital citizenship skills. Also, I like that it is a module that rolls out, so what one child is hearing at one elementary school exactly matches what another child is hearing at another elementary school. It's not something that has a lot of leeway in it, and I think that's important.
Thank you. Anything else? Well, thank you both. I think it's a great idea, and look forward to maybe making children and parents more aware. So. Okay, board members, we're now going into the discussion section. First, we have 4.01, and Dr. Hill will stay there, and Mrs. Ellen Szymanski? Szymanski. Should have asked ahead of time.
Okay. Okay, this evening we're here to talk to you about fine arts in Cabarrus County Schools. So when we decided to open a fine arts elementary school, we obviously had to begin the discussion of what we would do when those kiddos rolled up to middle and high school. So Ellen, who is our program choice coordinator, she's done a great job in this role working with all the stakeholders to develop what we think is a great option to continue with K-8 arts in Cabarrus County Schools. So we'll let Ellen share about that.
All right. As leadership discussed the options for placement of the fine arts program, we took into consideration the fact that we currently have specialized programs at 5 of our middle schools, and we have other middle schools, of course, that are overcrowded. We also considered the fact that we have received very, very positive feedback about the fine arts program at Royal Oaks Elementary. We've been very happy with the outcomes that they've had there, and the fact that we have open seats there available for students. So based on those considerations, we are proposing the addition of a 6th through 8th grade fine arts magnet at Royal Oaks. Our current proposal is that Royal Oaks would open with a 6th grade homeschool zone in the fall of 2020, adding 1 grade level per year through to the 8th grade in 2022. Students who chose to opt out of the program at Royal Oaks Elementary would return to Concord Middle. District administration, along with Ms. Marsh, have been working to conduct school visits to local K-8 schools, to fine arts magnet schools, and we've been collaborating with CNI and finance, facilities, and transportation to understand what may be needed to expand the program at Royal Oaks. So we're very much in the investigative stages, but are there questions or considerations at this time related to this proposal?
Has there been any kind of parent survey even before this with students or parents who may be interested in having a longer arts program as opposed to just the elementary grades? I wonder what the community feedback might be.
Well, we haven't, as far as I know, we haven't done a direct survey of the parents involved. This was a recent proposal presentation, but we have been getting regular feedback from parents about the interest in a middle level program. Okay. I have 36 kids in the 5th grade program at Royal Oaks, and I've heard from many, many of them about wanting to know what the option is for their students moving forward.
Okay. Board members?
So if I am the parent of a 6th grader at Royal Oaks this year,
5th grade.
5th grade, it's summer of next year, there'll be the option to stay at Royal Oaks in the 6th grade and continue in, or have a continuum, so to speak, of the fine arts program that they have been part of from earlier grades. So what is the capacity at Royal Oaks for this program over the 3 years that it would take to build it out for 6th, 7th, and 8th grade?
So Mr. Schultz and his team have been working to reevaluate the capacity of the building. We anticipate it's about 750. And they have in their program at Royal Oaks right now only 63 5th graders. So we haven't set a number yet as far as exactly how many seats we will make available for 6th grade students. We hope to potentially even invite others to join the program at Royal Oaks. We haven't set that in stone yet. We're still tossing around the capacity of the building and what makes the most sense.
So the only other thing that Brian may need to weigh in on, because we kind of went back and forth with this, was so when we're drawing a boundary for Royal Oaks, that ultimately we thought the easiest and the best thing to do would be to say that the current Royal Oaks Elementary boundary would be the Royal Oaks Middle School boundary, and that would be their home school. If they choose to not participate in the magnet program, then Concord Middle is their option. So either way, they'll get transportation. Pretty much looked at that and don't really see a major cost there because of where the neighborhoods are. But having said that, then ultimately what we're doing is, quote, changing the middle school assignment for some of those students. And we went back and forth, and I know Ms. Reimer talked a little bit with Mr. Shaw, and we were just trying to make sure that we did that correctly. So our recommendation is for that to be kind of a new middle school boundary, but it's a little bit odd because it's K-8. So, Brian, I don't know if there's anything to add there, or we just want to make sure that we kind of do it right and don't have to keep bringing it back to the table, if that makes sense.
Yeah, Lynn Reimer did discuss that with me. It's a little bit unusual, but I thought that the key aspect was that the children would not, would have the choice, right? The parents would have the choice of staying at Royal Oaks through the K-8 or going to the other school. So then at that point, it's almost a matter of semantics, as long as they are going to be given that right. And I want to make sure that the board is aware of it, whether it's called a change of boundary lines or just a procedural.
But if somebody moves into the district, that is going to be their zone. So that is something the board probably should approve.
It's their zone, but if they walk in that day and they live in that zone, they're going to Royal Oaks, and they walk in and say, well, I don't really want Arts Magnet, I want to go to Concord Middle, then they're going. So it's not
as long as there's space available.
Right, and that's, again, however that's best to do, that's what we want to do, but it is odd, as Brian said, and we just went back and forth, well, do we need to do this or not? And so we'll kind of leave that up to you guys.
I personally would like to see it presented to us, give the public an opportunity to provide input as well. So. And not that I'm opposed to it, I just think that Let's continue with the process.
Again, because it's an unusual animal, I think it can be done either way. I just think that the main thing is the parents are aware and that the administration, if promises are made, then that's going to be honored rather than being knocked out as a request, as an assignment request that is not granted. You don't want to be in that situation.
Makes you ask questions.
Can I ask, in the past, we've thought of Royal Oaks as a STEM and then a STEAM program. Will this movement toward a K-8 fine arts program mean some of the previous definitions or the programs available at Royal Oaks are being adjusted or reconfigured?
So there is no adjustment. There has been discussion about STEAM and STEM and all of that, but we've always held firm that Royal Oaks is a K-5 arts magnet school, and so we will be moving to a K-8 arts magnet school.
So what does an arts magnet look like in a middle school?
There's lots of different models. Like we said, we're doing lots of visits. Ms. Marsh has been really involved in this process, so we're just in the investigative stages right now.
Is there something specific you'd like to see, or is it?
We are in the investigative stages right now. So I like to think outside of the box. So instead of Crystal Hill pulling something out right now and saying this is what it should look like, I think best practice is to look around the state, find out where people are doing great things and go visit, and then pull ideas from that, so then we can create a program.
So at what point do you have
based on
to
that.
have? What point do you need that?
Well, we're going on visits starting in the next couple of days.
So there's a magnet choice fair, or
There is a choice
when is
fair.
that? That is-
It's in yes.
So you're gonna have everything.
Everything will not be ready, Mr. Walter, by October 8th, but I guarantee you when parents have to raise their hand and say, I want my kiddo to go to Royal Oaks, it will be there. So I think our main target right now are the kids that are at Royal Oaks right now that are in 5th grade. They're saying, oh my gosh, I love this experience. I want to have it in middle school. There's no other middle school that's offering it. We'll continue with that work at the middle
So
school
there's
level.
50-something kids that we're talking about right now.
Yes, and also we believe that we will have capacity to open it up to other students. My daughter I've not told her this, but I said, would you be interested in going to, yes, I want to do that. So we're considering
so 50
that.
plus a couple.
Yes,
Okay.
yes.
What about the sports? Obviously, there's no fields there.
So our answer for those sports right now, what we're thinking is that all students would be eligible to play at Concord Middle with transportation, or if we have students who are non-zone magnet students, they would be able to go to their home school or to Concord Middle.
But in 6th grade, they don't play sports.
Right, so it won't impact until 2 years. Correct.
And that was something, because they're on second tier, they could just, get out of school at 3 o'clock, 3:15 they get on a bus, would pretty much be at Concord Middle. That was something we talked about with Ms. Marsh, and we talked about with Ms. Snyder, that both thought that was very easy to facilitate. So we feel like that is a pretty easy answer to that question.
Okay, I'd just like to hear more when you get back from your visits.
Oh, absolutely. That's why we had the 3 dots on that last slide. We'll be back.
Do art magnets usually have sports?
I'm not sure. Our remedy to the situation would be that if kids went, it would be too difficult and probably too cost prohibitive to offer sports at Royal Oaks. So our answer would be if, for example, we live in the Winkler district. So if my child in 7th grade wanted to play volleyball, she would have the choice of either playing at Winkler if I provided the transportation, or she can play at Concord Middle. So I think the idea that we have right now is the best of both worlds. Students that are interested in the arts, if they want to play sports, they still have that option. It just wouldn't be at their fine arts school. It would either be at their home school or at Concord Middle School, because we can provide that transportation.
It sounds like you've done a lot of thinking already on the pluses and minuses, which will help when you go to the visits to see what you're looking for. So, any other comments?
But it is the intent of having it as a choice in October, because again, as Alan and Dr. Hill said, we're kind of shooting more for Royal Oaks students now, but we may have 10, 20, 30 6th graders from around the county that are interested to have that as a choice, but it will morph a little bit based on details of best practices. And as they said, Miss Marsh, who's here tonight, has certainly been a part of that and trying to work with their staff on the best way to set this up.
Okay, well, we'll just put you back on the agenda every so often. Thank you. Okay, board members, we're now moving on to the consent agenda under 5.01, the policy revisions on second reading. We do not have a presenter tonight, but we were all in agreement on these on the first reading. So I'll just ask if there are any comments or concerns. I'll drop down and read what the policies are. 6315 regarding drivers, 7130 regarding licensure, 7300 regarding staff responsibilities, 7610 defense of board employees.
Can you bring that one up?
Which one?
7610.
Dane?
And this might be more of a David issue, but when I first read that, I just don't like the way it read. It's generally the board's policy to provide a defense. Should more be it's generally the board's intent, because the policy, it's not a policy. It's a desire and intent, right?
Yeah.
I mean, David,
Did you bring that up in policy meeting?
I don't recall.
I don't think we quite wordsmithed it in that context.
I mean, you're the English major. It just doesn't read well to me.
It is generally the board's intent or approach. Policy would be synonymous with any of those.
I don't know that those are synonymous at that point. So, Mr. Shaw?
Well, this is a policy, but obviously the way it's written there, policy does not mean board policy, because so we have a little bit different meaning.
It probably should say something like intent.
I'd be glad to have intent. The key on this was that there was a case out of the city of Greensboro in which a statement about the board will was found by court to be a legally binding obligation. And so this is designed to express a desire or a general understanding, general purpose.
Desire is a good word too.
Desire works too. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know that I like desire personally.
I don't know. I just don't like the word policy.
We want to change it to intent. Is that okay, Mr.
Intent
Shaw?
works.
Does that work for everybody else?
Okay, Mindy, can you make that note to give that back to... Thank you. Okay, anything else on 7610? Next, we have 7730, employee conflict of interest.
Dr. Lauder, do we know if we got any comments from anybody on these things at all?
Yeah, I did speak with Ms. Reimert. As far as I know, we didn't have board feedback, and we didn't have any feedback from the public.
Especially that last one. Okay. Anything from HR?
And 7940, classified personnel, suspension and dismissal. So board members, any other comments? Can we put these on consent agenda?
Yes.
At next week's meeting? Okay. So they will all be on consent with that one word change. Okay, 5.02, we have a request for approval of training credit by Mrs. Carpenter. This is kind of, I'll say, standard process for us when someone takes a course not sponsored by NCSBA. It's supposed to go through the approval process.
Ms. Carpenter, would you mind talking about the 3 hours? What did you learn from the 3 hours that you spent there?
Well, they sent me through the metal detector. I learned how to get through our new metal detector. And basically, we went, we learned about our new metal detectors. We were testing those out. And basically, this was just our safety training for our principals and assistant principals. But basically, it was about going through how they were going to use the metal detectors. They had our metal detectors and we're setting
So how do they
those
use
up.
them? I don't know, whatever, we'll talk about that.
And we were at Winkler with that, and we were just going through some of the basic things with the new metal detectors. You'll see the agenda on there. We attached this. This was our safety committee, and we were going over some of the things with that. You'll find that on the thing that we submitted there, and we were. You'll see the agenda there. What we went over at that meeting. going through that with our safety committee and went through some of the training there with that. But basically, it was that morning.
Okay, well, thank you. I move approve that.
Okay. Are we good with the consent agenda?
Yes.
We good? Okay, we'll now move into items to consider for action at the September 9th business meeting. So 6.01 is a naming request for Central Cabarrus Band Room.
Thank you, Chairwoman Furtenbaugh. Once again, I'd like to call Dustin Shu and Bart Tolbert to the microphone over here. And once again, thank you for allowing me to present this to you. In accordance with Board of Education Policy 9300 entitled Naming Facilities, I would like to introduce the request we received from the Cabarrus County Band Directors Association for the naming of the band room at Central Cabarrus High School. Here with me tonight is Mr. Dustin Shu, Principal of Central Cabarrus, and Mr. Bart Tolbert, the Cabarrus County Schools K-12 Fine Arts Director, who will continue with this request.
Let me try again. Thank you. At the conclusion of their final PLC meeting in the spring of 2019, the Cabarrus County Band Directors approached me with the suggestion of naming the band room at Central Cabarrus High School after the late Nelson Ed Powell in commemoration of his service to the Central Band and to Cabarrus County Schools. Ed Powell was a dedicated husband, father, teacher, mentor, and friend to all of the members of the music education community. His 35-year teaching career marked 27 years of teaching in Cabarrus County, which include terms at Central Cabarrus High School, Hartselle Junior High School, and the opening of J.N. Freeze, C.C. Griffin, and Hickory Ridge Middle Schools. His subject matter knowledge was unparalleled, his band programs were second to none, and his tireless abilities to invest in the successes of each of his students, as well as his fellow educators, are just a few reasons why Ed Powell will always be revered as one of the finest music teachers in the history of our craft. Mr. Powell passed away on February 18th of this year. At his funeral, the sanctuary was filled with Central Cabarrus letter jackets. The band building at Central Cabarrus High School exists because of the exponential growth that the band program experienced during Ed's time as band director there. And for this reason, as well as the numerous others previously referenced, that we make this proposal. On behalf of the Cabarrus County Band Directors Association, the Central Cabarrus High School administration, and generations of Central Cabarrus alumni, we humbly request that the band room at Central Cabarrus High School be renamed the Nelson Ed Powell Rehearsal Hall to permanently memorialize Mr. Powell's service to Central Cabarrus High School and the music programs of Cabarrus County Schools. Thank you for your time and your consideration, and I will turn it over to Mr. Dustin Shu for the final comments on the naming request.
So from a pragmatic standpoint, our band room is almost solely used for the support of our music programs, and so we feel it would be a fitting and appropriate tribute to Mr. Powell. I can say that although the age of our building presents us with many challenges, we're blessed that we have 53 years of tradition, and we think there's no better way to capitalize on that tradition. And I say this as the principal of Central Cabarrus, as well as an alumnus of Central Cabarrus High School, that this is an opportunity to capitalize on that tradition and also to preserve the work that Ed Powell did within our community, in particular for Central Cabarrus High School and for our feeder zone. So thank you for your consideration.
I have a question. How long did Mr. Powell actually teach at Central?
He was at Central Cabarrus as the director from 1984 to 1991, and then continued to serve as the assistant director from 1991 until the opening of Hickory Ridge Middle School, which I believe was 2011. So until when he became the assistant for Hickory Ridge Middle School.
How many other things at Central do we have named after people? Is it This is the first. This isn't a first. We got a field.
So, to my knowledge, our football field is named after one of the original coaches, Dink Jordan. Beyond that, that's the only naming we have that I'm aware of on campus.
Gym or the floor is named. I know
The
that.
gym's named after Coach Mason. That is correct. Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. So those two athletic parts of our facility.
And cheerleading, the Beverly Burnett Gymnasium.
Yeah, I know that one.
I guess the point is we've done this before at Central.
I'm sorry, Rob.
We've done this before at Central. We've named pieces of the building after a person instead of just naming a school. So this is for a portion of the building. Is that right?
Thank you for bringing it forward. I think everyone here is in support of this, so appreciate your all's time and for thinking of Mr. Nelson and his family and honoring him in this way.
Madam Chair, can we please vote on this next week?
It will be. I mean, if everybody's good with it, we'll take it to action next week. Okay. Thank you. Okay, next we have agenda item 6.02 regarding the road improvement at Hickory Ridge Elementary School, which is under construction and additional funding needed. So Mr. Louder and Mr. Cohn, welcome.
Thank you. So we've received our pricing on the road improvements that are required for Hickory Ridge Elementary School, and unfortunately they do exceed our allowance figure that we had in the contract documents.
Yeah, excellent. Before you go any further, can we say this was a DOT required change? This was not us underestimating or not understanding our needs.
This is a North Carolina Department of Transportation requirement for us to do these improvements.
So this is the roundabout. Before we just had turn lanes and they were requiring a roundabout?
Correct. So just a brief backstory. We had initial conversations with DOT back in the fall of 2017 as to what they had envisioned on that improvement, and it was an asymmetrical widening, which basically means one side of the road gets widened in order to accommodate the turn lane. So that's what we submitted. We went through a couple of rounds with DOT, but at the end of the day, DOT was going to defer to the town of Harrisburg, who then hired Kimley Horn to provide the traffic impact study. Once that study was completed, it came back then at that point that a roundabout would probably be in the best interest of DOT, as well as improvements at Rocky River Road and at Lower Rocky River Road.
So this is for more than just a school?
They were trying to get more probably than we needed to provide them, yes. So at that point, Mr. Louder and I went back and we kind of gave some pushback to the town of Harrisburg and pointed some things out in terms of the proximity of the school on the Lower Rocky River Road side and where it stands with Mecklenburg County, and we really weren't going to impact that intersection that much with traffic. So we were able to reduce the scope of the TIA to some extent, but ultimately we have to put the roundabout in. So that's what we're working towards now. The estimate came in at $1,802,600. Again, we had $600,000 in the allowance for the contractor to perform this work. We provided you with a breakdown of how we want to request this money from Cabarrus County. Ms. Klutz and I went through and tried to make it as discernible as possible, and I'm going to let her kind of talk through that with you right now.
Sure, yeah, a lot of numbers up there. Let's start from the top. There are two separate requests here. Essentially, I'm going to summarize it real quickly. At the end of the day, we're going to need to ask the county for $762,600 more dollars than we have. And then we're going to deplete all of the available contingency that we have in our account. So with those things in mind, let's just step through it. The roadwork pricing in request number 1 was $1.7 million, as the contractor has indicated it would cost. We will need some more road work testing associated with this process with the road work. So for a total cost of 1.2, and I'm just gonna round up a little bit, round off. We do have the $600,000 allowance in the contract that Mr. Cohn spoke of. we want to ask you to apply the $440,000 of contingency that we still have available to us at the county level, which means now we have to request $762,600 from the county. On the second request, there is additional site testing unrelated to the road work, but related to the building of the school, and we can talk a little bit further about that if you need to. We also want to apply a portion of the contingency of funds that we have available to us for that. So at the bottom, then there's the summary of the contingency. So $475,000 is in our contingency balance right now. From the request 1, we want to apply $440,000. Request 2, we want to apply $35,000. So therefore, that would deplete our contingency for the project.
Okay. Didn't last year we had contingency for rock or something to that effect? What was that about?
We did. We requested $600,000. It was approved, and we have just under $180,000 still available of that. But we're still getting hit with.
So there might be some savings there, or there might not be.
It's possible there would be, but we still have additional rock that we just blasted last week as well that we'll be using that money for.
So we can't add that to this.
So we've had that discussion. We're down to what he has some known things that he has to issue change orders for, and so the available amount is probably realistically down to about $70,000, and we're just not comfortable freeing that up at this point. We just don't know what we're going to hit.
So we're asking the county to provide the funds, and then what happens? The county's paid for this, or this is a reimbursed thing?
Yeah, this is a DOT reimbursable expense.
And since it sounds like this started perhaps from the town of Harrisburg, as far as the roundabout, is DOT fully on board with we can claim it as reimbursable?
I talked to Mr. Mark Morgan, who's the district engineer, concerning the value of the work. He said that right now DOT has seen numbers in the $1.5+ million range for roundabouts throughout the state. So therefore, that was not a bad number as far as he was concerned. There were additional requirements that the town of Harrisburg put on the project with curb and gutter and sidewalks and that sort of thing. That would be the responsibility of the town of Harrisburg. So he said that we would make the improvements, and then DOT and town of Harrisburg would have to work out which entity was part of that reimbursement, because both are required under the legislation to provide for that reimbursement.
Okay, I'm not really asking about the money part of it with the town of Harrisburg. I'm saying because they requested it additionally to be done, they're not reimbursing us. I'm worried that DOT could say, we didn't ask for that from the get-go, so therefore we're disqualifying it.
The town of Harrisburg is requesting that work from us, and under the legislation, the town of Harrisburg is responsible for anything above and beyond NCDOT's required improvements.
Okay, so they have that straightened out? Because I don't
They may
think...
not straighten out, but that's their obligation.
Is it in writing?
So is there a letter of agreement with that?
Yeah. We need a written agreement from them?
We have to rely on the legislation.
So if they
Legislation
don't-
says
That would be...
municipalities and/or NCDOT shall be responsible for all improvements made necessary for the schools. And DOT will be responsible for the requirements they have, and anything beyond the NCDOT, the municipality's requirements shall be reimbursed by the
Is there a time
municipality.
period on this reimbursement?
Pardon?
Is there a time period on this reimbursement? Does the legislation say
A year
10 years,
after
1 year,
completion.
2 years?
Right? Is it a year after?
I do not know of anything specific in the legislation that says a specific time requirement.
What was stated was you couldn't apply for it till a year after completion, correct?
So what in the conversations we've had with the district engineer, we've asked how other districts have handled it, and they've received one from a private school in Kannapolis, and what they did is once they signed off and approved the improvements that were completed, they requested an itemized breakdown of all the costs associated with that improvement and asked them to submit it to the district level office. Where it goes from there, we are unclear, but it probably goes to the state level for some vetting of what was done, and then the reimbursements come after that.
It's an interest-free loan, in other words?
I guess you could say that.
Yeah, probably.
I don't like the process personally, but
It's a terrible process. We've pushed back quite a bit on what we feel like is necessary for the school. Unfortunately, we can only push back
So
so
if the
much.
county can't fund this, then it sits there until the money's available and then they build it, or how does that work? Or we just assume the county's
we won't
got
get approved to open.
The improvements are supposed to be in place prior to opening of the school. At least according to town of Harrisburg's ordinances.
Will there be some period of time when we would have needed our contingency, but the contingency balance is zero and we don't have anything else to fall back on for other last minute needs?
Normally at this point in the project, you're not normally going to have last minute needs. It's coming out of the ground, and I'm talking above my raisin. Coming out of the ground is usually when you're gonna work with your contingency, right? And so we know we did, and we had 600,000 we had to draw on because of the rock. We have a little bit left in contingency that we can draw on because of the rock. There's no known issues other than the potential rock there. And like I said, we've got a little bit of money there, but we had to try to balance, right? How much more are we going to ask the county for, and how much risk can we take of leaving that balance in there? So if we don't use that contingency, that's $70,000, we will always return it to the county. It's not that they won't get it back. It's just there in case we need it.
Tim and Brian, how much is the reimbursable amount? Is it the 1.7? Is it the 762? How much is it?
Yes, it'd be the 1.8. Yes.
And actually,
1.802,600.
and actually, once we itemize,
Glenda said I misspoke, and I said 1.2, but it was 1.8. I read the numbers wrong.
and then once itemization is submitted, we can also ask for the design cost of that as well, and right-of-way acquisition. All three of those factors come in.
So do we hire the contractor to do the work since we're paying for it?
Yes.
Okay.
Should this be approved, we would change order for the contractor.
The general contractor is managing it. It's under them. Is that what you're asking?
Okay, but we won't have any additional fees from it.
No.
Okay.
How much of that is Harrisburg's responsibility, do you think?
It would probably be in the range of $400,000.
But don't quote you exactly.
You're not quoting me exactly. You asked me for a
Yeah.
sky number.
But Harrisburg pays the county back, is that how?
Harrisburg and DOT will work out the reimbursement agreement
To the county?
to the county.
So we've already had discussions with the county, they know this is coming?
The county is aware of it, yes, sir.
In effect, will we turn the reimbursement or portions of it over to the county at that time? How will that actually work? Will it be kind of a pass-through that we give back to the county?
Yeah, it just goes directly to the county. We're out of it at that point, that reimbursement.
And all the improvements are turned over to NCDOT or the town of Harrisburg for their maintenance requirements at this point in the future.
And this is just for the elementary school. Do we have a similar issue at the high school, or is that not coming yet, or has that been resolved? What is?
We have a very similar issue at the high school. It'll be come to you in the following.
So the county's gonna have to come up with even more than just a 762 interest-free loan
Yes,
for a
sir.
project. It just doesn't smell good.
No.
It's
I really hope we can craft a letter to our legislators to show if the DOT had to pay for this directly, I don't believe they would be doing all of these improvements right now. But they're looking at, there's a free bank. And this is a way to get long-term plans, which is a great idea for long-term plans. But we could do phase one that's required for the school and let them come in later and finish whatever they want to pay for.
Actually, this legislation, though, is miles ahead of what the old policy was. The old policy was, I don't care how much you do, I give you $50,000.
But I don't think they were being as extravagant until they got into this. This seems like this is far more extravagant than the other 15, 16 schools that I participated in.
We lost a lot more money that way, though.
So.
Because everything above $50,000 we paid for.
Yeah, but we also budget it. We don't expect to get it back. We budget 600,000, and we said that's what we need for our turn lanes and our entrances and so on. It's just a shame that we had to go through negotiations. And does that come into play as well for reimbursement? The negotiations for all the little parcels along the road that we have to get?
The right-of-way purchases, yes, ma'am.
That's reimbursable as well?
Including your time?
No, ma'am. That's your donation.
Yeah. I find it very frustrating that it's come down to being executed the way it has. It's almost like getting the credit card for the candy store and, the toy store and thinking you don't need to pay anything back.
But we didn't
But you
budget for
do.
it, and the county didn't budget for it, so it's just coming saying,
Yep.
we don't care, we want another 700,000 plus whatever's coming up. How much is that, more than this one? The one for the high school?
It'll probably exceed this one.
Yes, sir.
And we'll be using contingency funds for that too?
We haven't had that discussion yet. We will be very soon.
Yep.
But let's reiterate again that none of this is because of our planning for this school. Let me ask you to put it in your own words instead of mine. Explain the dynamics again and,
We priced the project based upon just adding turn lanes at both the bus entrance and the entrance into the parent-student drop-off entrance. Turn lanes only, $600,000. However, in Harrisburg has a policy that we normally hire a traffic consultant to do the TIA. And they come in and determine what's necessary based upon the usage and the traffic patterns and that sort of thing. In Harrisburg, the entity is not allowed to hire your own traffic impact analysis. Harrisburg does that. You have to write them a check to pay for it, and then they hire it, and when it's done, they own it, and they put that requirement upon you as a developer, and we were technically a developer in this case. So therefore, once the TIA was finished and the improvements were required, then that was passed to us for final design and to put in. So it was beyond what we would normally have thought we should do. How's that?
Madam Chair, let's put this on the action agenda.
Oh, it will be, yes,
Okay.
definitely with the amount of money. We're past consent agendas here. So,
Thank you. Thank you.
okay, thank you. And our last agenda item, believe it or not, for tonight, but certainly not least, are for us to discuss operational cost savings to fund the teacher supplements in about 11 months, 10 months, I guess. So we can just start along the table. Ms. Blackwell, your thoughts, your ideas? Well, I'm looking left, I'm looking right. Have you prepared any ideas?
I have an idea.
Okay.
Y'all probably don't want me to say it out loud, so
Mrs. Grimsley, do you want to start down there?
Did you do the attachment that you said the ideas were being submitted?
It was really Carolyn and I and Barry had one, so there was nothing and no big ideas to send
Maybe
out.
we need to start with y'all then. I didn't see that.
And I did provide.
Uh-huh.
I did provide an idea too.
I don't remember yours.
I apologize.
Did you do the
I think I
attachment?
did as well verbally.
No, if I didn't get it in email, I searched for email, and if I didn't get it in email, so I replied back to Mrs. Carpenter that I wasn't going to send anything out. Okay, Mr. Harrison, do you want to start with yours? You were talking about AP and Dean positions?
Yeah, I just want to raise that as a topic. I don't have an exact plan in that. Deans and APs are needed for many, many great reasons. The county has provided several of those positions to us in the prior years, so there's a trend that we have to fulfill that need and provide those positions. It gives other teachers a career path. It greatly advantages students' academic achievement and morale in the schools. Certainly takes pressure off the principals to manage the schools in a day-to-day way. There's no argument for the need of assistant principals and deans, but among the choices that finance provided to us, it is one or two line items that possibly could be considered. But again, I don't have an exact plan to approach the operational savings just on that those line items for those positions. Just want to raise the deans and assistant principals as a topic of discussion is all I mean to do.
Well, I think if you bring it up, then you want to put it on the list.
It was put on the list by my email to you.
Yeah. So that was really the same thing as what Ms. Carpenter brought up. But I don't know that we have enough information on where those are and if there's any room, because I wanted to see the ratios of a school, an ADM, and how many assistant principals and or deans.
So I must have missed that thread. So you're saying you answered for that information to be given to us?
No, that was my idea that I emailed asking for.
So do we have the attachment that you said? What you
No,
said?
there's no attachment, Holly.
Okay, but did you say you were going to put them together and then give them to? That's what I read in the email.
There wasn't anything substantial, so David mentions, but there's no conclusion.
So did all of you agree on the same?
Huh?
What did you say? What did you
No,
say?
mine was I just asked questions. I wanted information.
Got it.
So I didn't come to a conclusion. I just wanted information to see what the balance was. So.
And I'm resending that email now.
No, I have the email. I found it.
Oh, not available.
But there's no conclusion in there is what I'm saying.
No.
So it's just, this is how much things cost, and so I didn't take it as something to put on a list to deduct because there's no conclusion. So other ideas, Ms. Carpenter, you had asked about the APs and deans as well. Was there anything else on yours?
Well, I had asked, my question originally had been, I wanted a listing of all the number of APs we had and deans we had at all the schools. That was my original question. Mm-hmm. I just wanted a count of how many we had at each of our schools. APs and deans at each of our schools. That was my original question. And when I submitted my amounts to you, I had just said two, because on our list that Kelly had sent out, she said we had 6 APs funded by the county with Fringe and gave us an amount. And I had said just deduct 2, and I said my thing was, if we had 2 positions available that came vacant, just don't fill those basically, and that would just say take 2 away, but that's why I asked for the number what we had. That's why I'd asked for that. My other suggestion had been taking $100,000 out of staff development. We had a total of 300 and something thousand, 300 some odd, and I said take up 100,000 out of that. And that was 2 suggestions, and I said that would roughly get us maybe halfway there. And that was the suggestion I made. And again, I said these are suggestions. My thing is, we're trying to work towards the greater good and trying to not hurt. It's all going to hurt. But we're trying to get there and try to see what is the, it's going to be tough no matter what we do, but we're trying to work for the greater good.
Yeah. And my,
so
my
this is
question about the deans and APs was if we see it, so school 1 has 800 students and they have 1 AP, no deans. School 2 has 400 or 500 students and they have 1 AP, no deans. You really can't take away anything from school 1, or you have 2 APs with 1,200 kids, which is what I'm guessing we have in some of those situations. Because how can you take one away? We have to have that data. You can't propose to take one away when they now have 1,200 kids in 1 AP, and then there's 400 kids in 1 AP. You know, that's not fair as far as what you have to manage. And APs usually handle discipline, right? So as far as the discipline and whatnot. So I think it's important to see what it is against the ADM. I think it would be eye-opening. So.
Well, I wanted to look and see what we were looking at, because I know some schools, they do have 2 APs, some don't. You know, and again, it may mean somebody's got to work a little bit harder. I mean, and that's life. But we just need to look at it and just see what we've got. If one's got a dean and an AP and a principal, and one's just got an AP and a principal, that makes a difference. They've got 3 people instead of 2.
Well, I don't want to say work harder, because I think the assistant principals work very hard with just the emails we get where parents don't like the discipline given or whatever. I think they handle far more than we realize every day. So I think that's very difficult.
But are you saying if they've got a dean, a principal, and an AP, and then one's just got a dean and a
Well,
AP?
it depends on the number of students, the grade level. There's a lot of factors in there I think you need to look at. So, yeah, but I definitely want to look at it, though.
I'm going to ask a couple of questions. So I just want to make sure I understand this. Are the teachers getting an increase from the state? I know that they haven't approved the budget yet for the state, but they're getting an increase, right? 2.5? Because, I mean, we had an email that said
There's a proposal out there.
there's a proposal out there for an increase. Chris, or Dr. Louder, sorry, you sent an email out about how it should go to all of the school staff, right? Because it was only going to the teachers.
No, so
Is that right? Okay.
the email that I sent out was currently right now what is suggested by the state is all non-certified employees in the state. So all state employees in North Carolina are going to get a 2.5% raise this year and next year, but they're non-certified. So for us, the equivalent of that would be custodians, bus drivers, TAs, all people that are non-certified. So what I sent out an email was to say you should also give our non-instructional people the same raise that you're giving every other state employee. But that doesn't have anything to do with teachers. They're in a totally different category.
Okay.
So it's the non-teaching, non-certified group that email was about.
Okay. So state has not approved the budget, so we don't know what the teachers are going to get for next year. Is that right? So let me just ask this. This may sound really stupid, which is fine if it does. But when this was initially brought to us by the county, it was we're going to pay for half and you're going to pay for the other half based on the operational savings from Beverly Hills. Is that correct? Yes. Okay, so now we've decided not to have Beverly Hills vacate, correct? So would the potential be that we could increase the teacher supplement by that half and just have the county pay for that?
No, the county's paying for the first half this year and into the future. They're not paying for the second half.
Well, that's what I'm saying, though. Okay, obviously we can't afford, and none of us want to have to get rid of positions in order to increase a supplement. I mean, I'm not saying that teachers don't want to increase their we all want to be able to do that for teachers, but if we can't afford it, can we just give them whatever the county is offering to pay for? Is that not an option? Without having to eliminate positions?
Did we already make a promise that they were going to get their full increase?
And they're getting it for
well,
this year
again,
already.
but that's where I think we have that is part of the issue with this entire scenario, in my opinion, was that we of course we want to be able to give these teachers an increase in their supplements. But we were doing it based on an issue that was already controversial. We didn't know if we were going to actually vacate Beverly Hills. That was the contingency. And so now we've been able to vote to keep it open, but are we going to potentially lose teachers and positions to increase the supplements? Like, I just...
That's on the table here. That's what we...
I know, but that's what I'm saying. I feel like we've done I don't know.
Well, I want to throw out one other idea that's not personnel, but our legal fees, Mr. Shaw, have, gone up. And I know there's certain needs, but when we changed firms, they've gone up significantly since then. So I just want to challenge staff to maybe brainstorm over the coming weeks on how we can do more meetings by teleconference where they don't need to be on site for certain meetings. And I think we need them for the board meetings, the formal ones, but maybe other opportunities because they are based out of Raleigh. We're paying their time and travel. And so when I looked through the last set of bills, Rob, I was looking for ideas. So reducing print costs, reducing travel time and fees. There may be things that staff who interacts with the attorneys can find. If we could, because I'm looking at 50,000 here, 50,000 there, a lot of different places.
And that's, I mean, that's stuff we look at, right? And that's something we can do as a board. But there's all kinds of other departments that can do kind of the same thing.
Yeah, not about departments goes that far, but I think there is some combination of different things we can do. And Mr. Shoemaker, you brought up about school resource officers possibly.
Since there are no real concrete ideas, I have some concrete ideas. And so I'll hand out this paperwork to everyone. One to Mr. Shaw.
It's colorful.
There you go. Yes, colorful. Since it's my work, I didn't want to go send it on email and all that other stuff.
That'll be on.
I didn't.
Oversharing. Barry, do you have another one? For Rob?
Oh, well.
Thanks.
Yeah, sorry.
Ooh, small print.
Well, it's
But so a lot of data here. This looks like a Kelly.
Justified in one page.
Kelly, this looks like a county budget sheet when they give us sometimes. It's like,
all right, so let me just guide you through it. The base document is Kelly's sheet that she provided us back in the August meeting. Maybe you provided it to us sooner than that. Oh, it says 7/9, so it was on July the 9th. She provided the base document. If you look on the sheet and you see where it says revised total pink, on those columns, that's my additional information. And so the green, if you'll see on here, there's green and it has NE by it. That means that that particular item is not eligible. Based on Kelly's conversation with us, she said these things would not be eligible. And also they've had some future other conversations with the county, and I believe, Ms. Hurtenwell, you said that they may even be sending us a letter talking about maintenance activities and things like that not being eligible. So if you go down the list, you'll see there's a lot of green on this list that says that these items are not eligible for reduction. So I focused on the ones that were eligible. And I'll start with the insurance of the facilities. If you go up to the top of the page and you see insurance of the facilities. Just one other item. If you go to the very top of the page, you see in yellow there's $694,643. That's our goal. And right now, the way this sheet's computed, I've been able to find a way to cut enough money to reach that with a $3,324 delta. So we actually make our goal. The first line item, let's go to insurance of facilities. And you can see that right now we spend $496,319 on insuring our facilities. If we were to make a 3% cut in that, that would yield $14,889. Now, what's the risk? The risk is that there could be a higher deductible, and staff would have to spend time to go back to the insurers and renegotiate the coverages for that. The next item is instructional materials. In instructional materials, we had a total of $3.518,518,059. I was suggesting and requesting a possible 3% cut in that, which ends up giving us $105,541. Instructional materials not only includes pencils, papers, and items like that, but there's some other things folded into that that we should also have conversations about. But right now, I don't know everything that's in that particular budget. But it's not just the physical pencil and paper and copying paper. There's other little items in there, I believe. I think the Arts Council donation, some other donations are in there as well.
For that instructional budget? Is that what you're talking about?
Yep.
Isn't that also the technology, light bulbs and stuff? The
So
schools
they
have to
can,
pay for?
they can use their instructional budget for, technology instruction, right? So those types of things, yes, so that would qualify.
And like print cartridges?
Yeah, all that would qualify
Yeah.
in that category, yes.
Yeah, I worry about
So
reducing any of that.
rather than have a debate about each item, I just want to go through it.
Okay.
But the big thing is what I'm trying to do is everybody shares in the pain. The real pain is, do we want to reward our teachers? And so this is what happens when you have to cut the budget. You have to go through little areas of pain to get there. Transportation expenses, again, we looked at a 3% reduction. That would yield about $44,700. One option we have available to us is to increase the walking distance or distance at which buses will begin their travel to schools. So if it's a quarter of a mile, I don't know what the mileage is.
Is that a policy?
There's a law about it.
There's a
You
law,
don't
but
have
we
to
are not
provide-
anywhere close to the law. Ms. Carpenter has brought it up several times in board meetings in the past of what the law states, or at least that we don't have to pick them up.
Don't
Yeah.
have to pick 'em up.
At certain distances. So that's something we would have to do research on, but it's still an option to be looking at, and 3% is all we're asking for, 3 cents out of every dollar. The next item was the SRO match. Now this one is a little different here because currently the county funds us a number of SROs, and for those SROs we get a big bang for our buck. However, the city of Concord, we pay them complete for all the SROs. So we pay right now we pay $1,008,921 for SROs from the city of Concord. 10 of those SROs are elementary school SROs, and those SROs are a part of a 2-to-1 state grant that we have. That 2-to-1 state grant means that the state will pay us $2 for every dollar we spend on locally. So Cabarrus County right now, based on the last MOU that we have, if you notice in gold, I revised that number to $630,576. The MOU that we approved in June stated that that was the cost for the 10 SROs that are supporting our elementary schools. So that is part of the 2-to-1 for the state. However, the state grant went into effect back in 2015-ish. I think that's when we first did it. And so the grant has never changed. So there's been escalation in their costs. So we're probably not at a 2-to-1. We're probably maybe at 60%, 40%, or something like that. We don't know yet.
57-43, I ran those numbers just while I was sitting here.
So the ratio is 57-43 rather than
Currently.
66-33. So there. Ms. Klutz has now given me the answer to that question. 57% comes from the state, 43% we support Concord with. So this comes out of our budget directly, which actually comes out of the county's, what the county provides to us. So the suggestion here is to negotiate with the city of Concord to see if they would accept paying for some facsimile of the SROs. And in this particular example, I used 25% of the $630,000, which ends up to be $157,000. Remember this, but their overall, what they receive from us is $1.8 million. So $1,008,000. So that's something that we would have to have a conversation offline with the city of Concord to see if they would be amenable to helping us out with the with some of their SROs. And I think it's a fair request to ask. Staff development, I put a 15% reduction on that one because I put 15%. Sorry. Then I went to the board and I put a 15% reduction on this, and this was based on a little bit more information. Our current TV costs about 28 grand a year, so we would reduce filming to business meetings only. So we cut out 50% of our TV and then reduce the food budget by 50%, which is about $3,750, and that would be that we would only eat on the night of the business meeting. So that's a proposal. So that would yield us approximately $20,000. The next one is the legal audit. The audit cost, I believe Ms. Klutz said it cost around $42,000 or 40 something like that per year. So I'm not actually wanting to reduce that audit, but I had 7% from the legal fee. So I was hoping to reduce the legal fee budget by about $37,900, almost $38,000. So when you add all of these up, that's where you get the top delta number, which means that I have been able to, on this sheet, I've been able to compute $697,967 worth of savings, which puts us slightly above what the goal was. All of these numbers can be changed, so this sheet's pretty automated, and I can change any of the assumptions that we want. So I wanted to show this to you because, you know, I thought that this would be a clear way of approaching this. The other thing that I didn't bring up is at the very top. If you look in purple, you'll notice that there are two line items in purple in the NEs, but they have a double asterisk by them. These are growth positions. So I talked with Ms. Klutz, and she talked with Dr. Louder, and they thought that they would be willing to sacrifice 2 growth positions in teachers and in 2 growth positions in clerical custodial, and those would yield approximately $260,000 worth of savings there. This means that no one would be actually, we would have no reduction in force, we would just have a lack of people to be hired to support the growth. So again, we're doing some budget cutting, we're tightening up our belt a little bit, going on a little small diet here, and so we have to accept the pain. But here's where I started, and I now turn it over to anyone who wants to ask questions.
And,
I'm not going to ask a question. I just want to say, wow, this is awesome, first of all. Second of all, this also is very, I hope, very eye-opening to people that we don't really have a lot of excessive spending because we can't, because we don't have the money. I mean, right now we're talking about cutting, which I've long since thought that we should cut the meals. I enjoy them myself, but I'm just saying that that's completely unnecessary to feed me. I can eat on the way here. So it's great. I mean, you did a great job. I'm very impressed, seriously.
And
But again,
yes,
it's
Mr.
contingent upon renegotiating something that you may not be able to do.
Well, I think that it's time to have conversations with our local city officials. They've asked a lot out of us, and they've, you know, our cities work to grow themselves, but at the same time, the community pays for that growth in a lot of ways, and the school system pays, but they have no obligation. So what we're trying to do is just say, guys, if you could just come to the table and help us through this. All we're trying to do is get our teachers a 0.5% increase. And you know, it's not like we go to them every 5 years with a request. So this is like a one-time kind of request, and I would not see it for another generation probably. But at least it's a place where we can have a conversation, and I think we really need to have a
that
conversation.
conversation anyway, because you're adding another SRO at the opening of high school.
Yes, but I'm not going after the high school or middle school, so they're off of this. I am only looking at the SROs associated with the elementary schools because they're the ones where we have the 2-to-1 state grant. But when you look at the overall cost of the contract, it's $1,008,000. the 157,000 isn't as big is not 25% of that. It's more like 15%.
And I just also want to say, Barry, thank you for bringing up something. And Dr. Louder, you know I've talked to you about this several times, with having meetings with the municipalities, because like you said, they expect a lot from the schools and for the school board to make decisions monetarily, but they're also benefiting from this as well. I mean, they want good schools in their cities and their towns. We've got to have the money to be able to provide those things. You want to have good teachers in the county, we've got to be able to pay them well. So I think, to your point, everybody needs to share in the responsibility of that.
So the $1,008,000, just remember, the $1,008,000, where do we get that money from? Comes from our county commissioners and from our county. So the county pays the city indirectly through us $1,008,000 to help us support. Now I don't know if you can quite put it that way, but we're getting those from local funds. Is that a fair statement, Ms. Klutz? A portion. I'm talking about, this is the MOU contract with
The city.
with the city.
Yeah.
And there's
So-
also one with the county.
And there's also one with the county, yes. So I pay them directly. I pay the city that $1.8 million, you know, on a monthly
Yes.
basis. But I pay it from 3 different pots of money.
Okay.
The high school comes from a state pot of money. It's an at-risk pot. The elementary school was 2 different pots of money. One state, the 2/3 that you mentioned, was started 2/3, and now it's down to
57.43.
57%, yeah. And and then the local has to pick up the difference. And you know, just another little important piece there. When we started the state grant, how many ever years ago that you said, we started with $768,000 was our portion. Then the state cut us last year to $699. So right there was a $68,000 cut, just because that the state, more folks started applying for school resources officers around the state. They didn't have any additional money, so that diluted the pot. So that was $70,000 right there. And every year, or every MOU that we sign for the city, we have an increase of salaries and benefits, just the way that we do for our own employees. But I say that to you to say that the county has not raised our fee ever. We pay a really, really small amount for the SRO. So the county is already supplementing us greatly with what we get on the SRO side.
They're also paying themselves, right?
Pardon me?
They're also in essence paying themselves. It's the county sheriff.
So there's the local portion of the county comes from, yes, the county to me and then back to the county. Yeah, the matching portion. But I can't say enough about what the county does for us in that arrangement. If you look at those numbers, we pay about half what we do to the city. I mean, I just can't say that loud enough. The county is wonderful to us.
And
in
maybe
that
we
arrangement.
use that in our discussions about if we could get the city provided SROs at the same rate of the county, that would help us
greatly.
Yeah.
And if I can chime in too, Mr. Shoemaker has a long history of being extremely detailed and analytical, and this is marvelous, as many other examples we've seen or I've seen over 7 years with the pleasure and the honor of working with Mr. Shoemaker. He goes to a whole lot of trouble to just break it down to the exact painful line items, and he's not joking. And here it is. Here's a position we've gotten ourselves into.
So
In many ways, I won't say I like every item on here, but I'm going to keep an open mind. I'm not going to speak nay against anything in particular. I just would like to ask, as far as the dean positions were concerned, is that itemized in here somehow or understood under assistant principals, including benefits?
It is it's in green, and we didn't take anything from that area in this document.
Yeah, in this document, the only, and they could have been in the teachers, maybe it was in administrators. So No, I didn't know about the dean discussion, so there's been, I factored nothing in for the dean discussion. So,
Well,
So I knew this was going to be on the agenda, so I prepared something to say, and I appreciate, as has been echoed by the board, Dr. Shoemaker taking the time. Dr. Shoemaker.
thank you. Oh, I just love that. I've never been called doctor.
Mr. Shoemaker taking the time to look at this without rifting any of the dean or AP positions. Those positions are not just for discipline. There's often a facility AP and a curriculum AP, things that would not get done or would fall through the cracks. And I think what you're going to see in a couple of months is lots of growth academically around our county, lots of schools that have met or exceeded growth. That doesn't just happen. It takes somebody at your school advocating for that. So if I could read my statement without my voice shaking too much. It has been said over and over that teachers don't become teachers for money. And that I know that is true, not just for myself, but many of my peers, that teaching is a calling. In all humility, I tell you that I am a great teacher. I constantly work hard to be an even better teacher, and I choose to be a great teacher here in Cabarrus County Schools. I am what Dr. Louder calls homegrown. I started at Bethel. I went to Freeze, where Mr. Powell was my band director. I was Central Cabarrus Viking. My children go to Weddington Hills. My parents met at Central Cabarrus in Spanish class. And my grand was a teacher at Bethel High School before it was an elementary school. My roots and my heart are here in Cabarrus County and Cabarrus County Schools. That being said, the teacher supplement is important to myself and teachers around the county, both financially and for district morale. By increasing the teacher supplement 1%, and I know you are doing half of that, you are helping teachers to make a very difficult decision to come to CCS, to teach in CCS, and not to leave our district for other higher paying neighboring counties such as Union and Charlotte-Mecklenburg. I met a teacher just last week at Harrisburg Elementary. His son goes to Harrisburg Elementary and they live in Harrisburg. The dad is the coach for Harrisburg Rec and his son plays ball at Harrisburg Rec. They live in Cabarrus County and their lives are in Cabarrus County, but he teaches in Charlotte Mech. He said, I would love to teach here in Cabarrus County, but I can't afford to take the pay cut. On August 21st, I sat in an interview committee for the CCS Beginning Teacher of the Year. The committee asked the 9 teachers that were interviewed why they chose to teach in Cabarrus County schools, and over again, is because they felt supported, not just in the classroom, but financially. You have invested in these teachers beginning with new teacher orientation, and I urge you to stay committed to your investment. Your money will not be idly spent. This is money that will show you, the board, a huge dividend. I work with a coworker who is in her 30th year of teaching in Cabarrus County schools. Isn't this something that we want to be the norm and not the exception? Dr. Lauder has mentioned the motto for the 2019-2020 school year, we take care of our own. Show our teachers that you embrace this motto as you embrace them. I ask you on behalf of the teachers of Cabarrus County School to find that 5.5% teacher supplement. I thank you for taking the time to find those cuts without losing teacher positions.
I have one thing to say, and that is, in my conversation with Ms. Clutch, I said, you know, I'm really trying to find a solution. And it was during that conversation that she talked to Dr. Louder and offered up $260,000 worth of growth cuts. We wouldn't be anywhere close if we hadn't had that particular sacrifice put on the table. That's not a rift, though. Those people are not here. They're not employed. It's just an opportunity cost, and that's huge. So my hat's off to y'all for being able to try to meet me halfway and try to put something out there that looked like I could make sense of it. The next part is, and the heavy lifting is, Kelly and her team have to go out and look at these insurances And if we decide to go with this, they're gonna have to negotiate, and we don't know what that's gonna look like. Our deductibles may go, 3 times, 4 times higher than what they are, I don't know. The SRO conversation is something that's gonna have to be a delicate conversation that we'll have to have with the city of Concord. But they have to understand, we are trying to work for a better community. We need everyone to pull together and make this a better community. It's not just about the county, it's not just about Cabarrus County Schools, it's not just about Concord or Harrisburg or Mount Pleasant or Kannapolis. It's all of us, and we're all in this game together. And then, everything else is, things that we'll have to talk about. There are opportunities. I think the schools would probably not bow up on the fact that they lost 3% of their instructional materials because their teachers got rewarded, and that's what, at least we're trying to do something, and I think they would recognize this loss of instructional materials. But 3 cents on the dollar is not nearly as bad as 20 cents on the dollar if we were to do something dramatic like that. And I didn't want to do that with the instructional materials, so that's my piece.
Barry, I think you said it nicely, and again, I want to thank you for, as I've said before, we're all in this together, and it's a team effort, and we all should work as a team. And again, we're trying. It's very difficult, and we want to do, and again, we all have to work as a team. And as I mentioned, all the schools and all of us have to work together because we do want to do it as a team. And it's for the greater good. It's for the children, it's for the teachers, and we want to do it because we do want to be the best. We always strive to be the best for the children and for the system as a whole. And I appreciate what you've put together. And again, I kept trying to do looking wherever and whatever. And again, if we have to tweak a little bit more or do a little bit more, I'm willing to do it, to do where we need to be, to get where we need to be. And again, whatever we need to do, and hopefully get our good negotiators out there and see what we can do. And hey, go. But thank you.
Yeah, Mr. Schumacher, I'll say I appreciate it too because I love spreadsheets, but it's just a matter of getting acclimated. Yeah. But I have a question for Ms. Klutz. So, the growth positions, do we know how many we've been allocated this year for growth?
Okay. So, no, I don't have a budget yet, and I don't have my true. I'm not going to say that. Students in their seats.
Yeah, you won't have that for
so I don't have
week
the
or so.
exact numbers. I never know. But that's just typical of school systems, right? But what we do is we project, and Glenda, help me.
Well,
because I gave her the positions.
Yeah, not in particular about the positions, but I'm wondering when we get the ADM money from the state. We take a small amount out, and that's considered instructional supply money, right?
Right, so that comes in that specific target allotment. So we get an instructional supply allotment based on growth.
So what I'm wondering is, if we keep this instructional materials decrease, do we close to net out to the same amount as last year?
It wouldn't be as a significant hit if you're just saying net the growth in the instructional supplies. Yeah, we could definitely do that, and it wouldn't be that level of a hit.
Well, I'm just wondering if using that same concept of don't use the growth money for where it may have originally gone, but let it stay, don't add it, but let this number stay a lower impact.
Right.
Just because I know, we've talked many times about some PTOs have great fundraising abilities and they supplement the school for these types of things, but other schools don't have big PTOs. So.
Yeah, you can do that, and I can do a projection on what I think our growth number would be on instructional and net that off for you. But
yeah, just wondering if it could reduce.
It could. It could.
Because that could go, what we don't have as in these growth positions, like, we don't know yet, we haven't come to love them yet. So therefore, we could reduce just what the growth would be in that category.
Yeah, I can do that.
So.
I can make a note and have that to you by the next meeting, yeah.
And Mr. Shoemaker, could you explain again about the transportation expenses? What?
Well,
because I thought that was for parts and things on the budget.
Well, I don't have a real plan for transportation. I was giving them a 3-cent reduction and per dollar.
Yeah, is that
One of the ideas in the conversation, though, when I was, Ms. Klutz and I had some brainstorms, and I asked permission if I could just talk to her, and they gave it to me, and I said, let's talk about your sheet. And I said, let's talk about transportation specifically. And I said, what could we do in transportation? And she said, well, one of the options the board has available to it, and that is, we have a perimeter that we put around every school that's basically, quote unquote, walking distance. We could increase that perimeter, and that may have some savings, might yield the 3 cents on the dollar. At the same time, there may be some operational savings that Art and Company could come up with, being given this challenge to say, all right, what could we do to save 3 cents on a dollar? And this, after next year, once you've frozen it, then escalation after that would occur. So, you take it one time and you just keep it 3% lower or whatever. But I don't have any magic solutions to each one of these. I was trying to hit everybody at a very small level, trying to figure out where we could get our return on this, and utilizing what categories we had left. So that's where it was going. That's what I attacked, in a way I attacked it. The biggest opportunity, of course, I thought may be with the city of Concord, maybe an opportunity to have a conversation. It may not be 25%. I mean, I just threw up a number out there. So, and none of these numbers are all they're just numbers. So, but I thought, for the board, I thought it was realistic that we could look at it that way. We may not want to eliminate TV, and when you do, if you say, all right, we want to keep filming at every meeting, then that's another $14,000 that we have to look for elsewhere. But at least you understand the tension and the give and take, and that was more important for you to understand the give and take that we're up against, so that we could begin to have a sanity check on what we're doing with how we deal with the budget. But we're almost halfway there with what Kelly and Dr. Louder have provided to us, which was a huge help, because I was having to make some pretty drastic cuts in a couple areas to get there.
One of the questions the question I was gonna ask you is about the TV filming. So I know that we've kind of talked about this before, like, do we continue filming the work sessions? Do we not film the work sessions? I didn't know in the past, have we always filmed the work sessions? Was there a period of time where the business meeting was the only one that we?
Yes.
Well, not since I've been on the board, so it's definitely
Up till
pre-me.
2012. Holly, do you remember when we started filming work session? I thought it was 2010. Is when we started? Yeah.
Do we have a huge viewership?
Oh, yeah.
For the work sessions?
I think it's an important thing for the public. They can go online, they can look at old meetings. We've had numerous people refer to old meetings. Well, they won't be able to do that if we're not on film.
No,
I think
hear you.
I think it's important. I don't think that's something I'd be willing to cut. I'd be willing to modify it. We have students that have all the equipment. They can do a lot of the same work if necessary, but I do think it needs to be on film.
Well, I think there's the other thing about it getting professional, and you see how many cameras we have here and whatnot. So
No,
it's not a
they do a
single camera.
fantastic job, and don't give me that's.
Yeah.
I think they do a good job for the money.
Well, I think we can even, I guess, think about, do we need, I don't know, I was trying to think if we only have one meeting in July, but do we need every work session? But then we never know ahead of time which ones we're going to have what topics on, so.
The devil's in the details of these, and I hate to use him, but there is detail that we could look at, and there are probably opportunities, even in instructional materials, where there are things that might be eliminated out of that category that we could talk about. Some things that I don't know enough detail about and would rather not talk about. until I have better understanding. But I think that's the same thing goes with transportation, even with staff development. You know, $57,000 is a lot of money to lose when we want to educate our staff, and that hurt for me to have to put 15% in there, because I want our people to be, I want y'all to be where you need to be, and to be able to service our children exactly where you want them to be serviced. And so that was I hated to put that 15% in there, but I was trying to get to where I thought it might work. So.
Well, I think we do have an opportunity, if we all put our heads together on several of these categories. I'm guessing we can probably get up to 50,000 on the legal fee part, because we should not have increased as much as we have. And of course, it ebbs and flows with what kinds of issues you have going on. If there's, OCR complaints or whatever, different things that go on. So, but I think we can look at opportunities. I don't know that we're going to get all this done this week. That won't happen. But I'd like to start thinking, Dr. Louder, about kind of assigning out and who can look at different areas. So obviously the insurance, I'm guessing we'd have to have you look at that, Kelly. Who
We
handles the
have a
insurance?
new employee. His name's Mr. Dan Collins.
Mr. Who? Oh,
Dan.
the risk manager?
Skill set on staff.
Where is
Mr. Schultz?
He works for Mr. Schultz.
Yeah, he works for
Okay. So can you all take that item
Oh,
on the
yeah, for
insurance
sure.
and just do some research on it?
Yes.
I know just from our HOA, when we looked at getting new quotes and changing deductibles and stuff a couple years ago, just for a small number of buildings, we got a pretty good percentage reduction. So it's worth looking at. So, and then can we have Mr. Whitaker think about the transportation, if there's opportunities there?
That's me as well.
Oh, that's yours too. Darn.
Sorry.
I guess I can.
Staff development, though, we have staff development in different areas too, not just that line. Because don't we have staff development that falls under our Title I, under I mean, because there's staff development under all those other different areas also. Is that not correct?
Right. There's some federal programs, Title I, as you mentioned, that has staff development. And there is also, but mostly that impacts our Title I schools.
But there, I mean,
it is our
that's not the
Title
only
I.
area where you're getting
Right.
staff development.
Right, and there's
I
some,
mean, under IT, they've got staff development
Mhm.
also, so that's not the only area.
Isn't that under curriculum instruction now, though? Like the ITF, staff development, or whatever might occur there?
So, I mean, when we say that, that's not the only area where they're getting staff development.
Mr. Shoemaker, could I ask to a friendly amendment, for lack of a better expression here? And this kind of hopefully dovetails with what Ms. Carpenter was saying. For instructional materials and staff development, can we somehow say non-classroom items? If there are such things. I don't want to cut classroom instructional development or classroom staff development, because the reality is that the teachers, when they get a 1% raise, will then plow some of that raise back into themselves spending money for instructional material. That's what teachers do. They've got to have the material. And I just want some clarification on these items so that it's not classroom items itself. Am I making some sense, or can that be parsed or teased out of?
The big thing is, I think at this point, until we really understand the detail of the 357,000 or 381,000, or no, you're talking about the instructional materials. Is that what you're talking about, David?
Yes, sir. Anything that's, I don't want to hit any items that basically would enhance classroom success and teacher working with children.
Then where are you going to go to? I mean, eventually, you know, the problem was that Kelly gave us a list of white items here. And I only say that because everything else I colored green. But
Yeah, you colored everything.
well, I wanted y'all to, I wanted to make it so you couldn't make a mistake. And so everybody's feeling a small piece of pain. But you know, we can look at the detailed items and does the 15% make sense in the staff development? Does the 3% make sense in the instructional materials? Or is there even more opportunity in instructional materials that we don't know about because something's buried in there that we didn't know was buried in there? But, you know, I don't know enough about those
there's
subjects.
not. There's that one item that you and I kind of talked about, but it is instructional allocated to the schools. The principals make the decisions on what instructional supplies there are. And by definition, because it's given to us from the state and it's called instructional supplies, it must comply with the definition of instructional supplies. So I don't think you can say take non-instructional materials out of instructional supply account, right? It just doesn't exist. So everything that's in that account is deemed to be instructional
For classroom
for classroom purposes.
Where are all these end-of-year celebrations? What account or what category does that go under?
End of year celebrations, you'd have to give me more.
Retirement celebration, bus driver, nutrition, you name it, there's a lot of end-of-year celebrations.
So transportation would be paid out of the transportation budget. Retirement is out of local, yeah.
And
Local is the retirement banquet is paid out of local dollars.
So nutrition's under the nutrition
The
budget?
child nutrition is paid, actually, that's all donors. They're not allowed to use any of their federal.
The summer party that y'all have here?
So we have a summer party here. Dang, where'd I miss that?
I don't know,
invitation?
I've come here, you have a tent, you have t-shirts for everybody, there's an expense for that.
So
Is that, what's that under?
That's an operational budget.
That's an operational budget.
Yeah.
And then the only other
And there's
thing-
a ton of donations associated with that.
Which is
too.
great.
It's
I mean,
just
that's-
small
that's-
amount of operational money.
But if we're looking to cut and pain, if we don't have a celebration, we save some money.
You're not saving much money.
No,
but
and I
certainly
think at that point, you're back into the risky morale category.
Again, it's just we're throwing things out here, that's all. And then the only other part that I had and mentioned earlier, you have it as a green item, but we have computer leases and $1.8 million. And I would really rather think about things than I would thinking about people.
That was one of the off-limits
Well,
categories
maybe
by the county
it
manager.
may not be, again, it's a 4-year lease, there's nothing that says, well, why can't it be a 4.5-year lease?
No, it
Why
is.
can't it be a 5-year lease? It is open to a discussion. If that's what we need to cut, we need to discuss it. And if there's savings
It's
there.
not.
I disagree with that.
I asked,
We could ask, but again,
and from a technology standpoint.
there's nothing that says it
not
has to be a
recommended.
4-year lease, there's nothing that says it has to be a 5-year lease. There's a lot of money that's
For the health
potentially
of the
saving.
technology environment.
Not
that
saying,
we don't
we've
have-
invested a lot in technology lately.
So we don't have instructional interruptions.
Understand. Again, these are discussions, and I'd like that one discussed.
Ms. Clutson, this is a general question, and I'll regret even bringing the subject up, but do we charge enough for Kids Plus?
That's an enterprise anyway.
That's not this category
Self-supporting
at all?
fund, it's not in this category for savings, and anything you did in that would not roll over.
Never mind. Thank you, though.
Yeah, Mrs. Grimson, we haven't heard from you.
Well, I definitely want to speak because I'm so excited to hear all this collaboration. You know, I felt like that issue was one of the most divisive with the closing and the discussion of Beverly Hills. And I still support what we did because I just don't feel like we are about tearing down schools and communities. So I think we made the right decision. I think Mr. Shoemaker has done a great job. I think we need to turn this back over to Ms. Klutz and let her figure out what all this does work and what else they can add or change or do. I just think it's great. And I really appreciate, Barry, you doing that. It's been really good. So I appreciate that. It's good to hear everybody come to the table and have positive thoughts and interaction versus negative. So thank you.
Cindy, over here.
Oh, like where am I?
I was going to say, I'll be glad to take a look at the legal. We have a summary of the last year and look at what, if anything, can be done along that line or any suggestions along that line.
Just
But-
opportunities maybe where we had additional expenses.
Well, I'll just take a look at the whole thing, expenses and everything. And of course, much of legal fees depends on what you're asked to do. And, you know, there are school systems that say, we're going to cut fees, we're going to not ask for as many services, and that's certainly a legitimate approach. But I'll try to identify some of those aspects so that you have a little bit more information. It's a black box to you right now, and hopefully I can help a little bit on that.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so back to kind of who can look into different things. So from a transportation, Mr. Schultz. Yep, got that. Transportation and insurance. Got that. Did we assign you anything else? We can. No, thank you. May I not have another, please, ma'am? So, Ms. Abbott, you don't have a microphone, but if we could assign you brainstorming about some options for snacks instead of full meals. I know we had talked previously about reducing the amount of food and whatnot, but if you can come up with some ideas, that might help some of those. Dr. Louder, how do you want to approach talking with the City of Concord? Because this tape will be out there before we can meet with them probably.
Yeah, so I think you guys need to decide how you want to communicate that. In other words, if the school board is asking the city council to change budgets, then I think you probably need to have that meeting and make that request.
But this is for next fiscal year, it's not for right
not
now.
this fiscal year.
That's right. But again, you would, I think, be asking them to change the way they've operated for a while. So I can certainly mention what the board has said tonight to the city manager, but at the end of the day, I'm not sure that, just as you guys are making the decision, will the city council make the decision? So is that a conversation you want to have with the Concord City Council?
Absolutely.
Well, I think,
Let's do that.
Yeah, but I don't think we go into and schedule a big public meeting on one topic. So
No, but I think we should
let's
have
some conversations.
I mean,
first.
I've told Dr. Louder this too. I think we should have regular discussions with each council, town council, city council,
Yeah.
and the municipality.
Well, let me share with what the county has offered. First, we need to have our joint meeting, and we're still struggling with that date. We have started drafting an agenda very loosely, some handwritten notes, but I need to formalize that. Then the county has offered that when they have a summit, as they have done in the past, and Dr. Lauder has spoken, when they have a summit, when all the municipalities come together, then they will give us the floor for that meeting. It may not be the very next one, depends on when we get this joint meeting scheduled, working around everybody nixing some date or another. So they'll give us a summit. So that may be in the next 3 months. I'm not sure exactly what that date is. I know they just had one. So if we can get our joint meeting done and then they say, okay, for the next one in 3 months or so, then we'll have that one. So, but I think this is a separate conversation with just the City of Concord. I'm willing to at least start calling a few of the council members and just kind of put it out there for discussion and why we're asking for this, for the greater good and morale, in our community and in our district. And then see how they would like to plan. So if you'll talk to the city manager, I'll call a couple of the council people, and we'll at least get started that way. So.
The next summit is on November 13th.
Yeah, we may be able to make it for then. I'm not sure yet. It's in November. Oh, that's actually. So is that 13th? What day of the week is that?
It's the 18th.
That's Wednesday.
I've already got it on mine.
Yeah, I had it on mine.
17th, 18th.
Day after our business
I
meeting.
knew it was around that same time.
So it's right before. So this is a Thursday though?
Wednesday.
A Wednesday.
I knew that was about the time our conference.
Yeah.
I knew that conference.
So we'll start. So what other areas did we have? So Ms. Klutz, you're going to look at what the potential is for the supply increase. And what other, and Brian is going to look at Mr. Shaw is going to look at the legal fee opportunities. We can assign that to you too, Mr. Schultz. And were there any other categories?
I'd like us to look at the technology savings potentially on leases.
Yeah, the county's instruction was that's off the table, and that's what they're going to send us a
Well,
letter
we
on.
can have that conversation at a joint meeting then.
And assistant principals and deans, does that need to be delegated? Again, just as a discussion point.
Yeah, I have one question on that. Is there potential of getting any more principal interns out of UNCC?
That's a year-to-year thing. This year we have, how many principal interns do we have? I was going to say the same thing. I think we have 4, but some years we may have 6. The next year we may have 2. It really depends on how many people are in the pool, and they try to kind of, we actually have a really good relationship with UNC Charlotte. They give us a lot, but they're obviously maintain relationships with other districts. So no way to know that until they assign those, which is usually in the spring into the summer.
Okay. I guess for right now, let's work on all these other thing categories and see what it comes up to. Does that sound fair?
But can I still get that I'd like to see
Yeah.
that information on the schools just to see what we have. I mean, we may not have to use it. And again, when I sent you that, I said, these are just things, you know, we were throwing out ideas. Hopefully we wouldn't.
So who
like to
can
use it,
provide
but-
that? Is that more of Mrs. Jones or?
Yeah, I think we're a little bit confused on exactly what you guys are asking for that. Because
Okay.
when she sent out administrative months. So what is it that you guys are looking for?
A school, the ADM, number of APs, those are the columns, and number of deans.
Okay,
Is that right, Carolyn?
those are a lot, Ms.
So you just want all 40 schools with,
Right.
you have 300 kids, 1 AP. That's what you're looking for?
Yeah, or if they got 2 APs.
Okay, yeah,
Or
she'll,
if
she,
Doesn't have
if
to
they
be
got
names
2
or anything, it's just
APs and a
quantities.
dean.
I have it.
Okay,
I have it. I can send it to you now.
okay. You sent it to me?
I said I can. I
Okay.
can send it to you now.
Yeah, just numbers. And I think what we'll find is it'll take it completely off the table, personally, because when you look at, you can't take, one away from an 800 student school, you can't take one away from a 400 student school. And you really don't get to 2 until you probably are 800 and above. So,
yeah, I would just say in that I mean, like Ms. Klutz said, she can send it to you. So what we've gone back and forth in past years before me and during me of saying, can a school operate without an assistant principal? And we have had times when a school just had a principal and no assistant principal. So when the principal comes to a meeting at the county office, there's nobody running the school. And we have ultimately determined that is not the best way to go, that we want to be able to have somebody there. Principal has surgery or has a baby or whatever may happen, and you say, well, there's nobody running the school for 12 weeks. And so we've just said we can't do that. But the reality is, at a school with 300 students, it's more expensive to put an assistant principal there than a school with 800 students. And so you get back into that discussion. But we have, as a district, made the decision that we don't want to have a school where we don't have somebody else that can take over. Now the board can say, well, we don't want you to do that anymore. We want you to take that away and make it so there is no assistant principal. But that would be a leap away from everything that we've done for the last 5 years. So again, I think what Ms. Furtenbaugh said, or what you're saying, is you're going to find that obviously if there's only 300 kids being served versus 800 kids being served, there's a difference in money. But we have said if there's a site, it just takes another person to be able to be safe and run the school properly. Same thing with any of those positions as we said, an SRO. So the cost of an SRO is more expensive for 300 students than it is for 800 students. But we've kind of made the determination as a district that we'd like to have one at every school in case there's an emergency. So the only way to undo that is to say, okay, philosophically, we're not going to do that anymore. We're not going to put someone there that can cover the school if the principal's out of the building. That's really the only way to dip into that fund, per se.
so Mr. Shoemaker, are there any other categories that we should have researched in the coming weeks?
Sorry. I was jotting notes on the spreadsheet, and I'll send y'all what I have. So on the first one with insurance, I have Ms. Klutz will,
No, Mr. Schultz.
on the insurance?
Mr. Schultz, yes. I have it all written down.
Oh, risk manager, that's right. Sorry, Kelly. I'm just too familiar with talking to you. You're now my second, Brian. Or my Harry Carey. All right, so Brian will take care, Mr. Schultz will take care of the insurance.
And
Instructional
transportation.
materials will be Ms. Klutz, right? Then the transportation is Mr. Schultz again. I'm just going down the list. Now, we have the SROs. I said more discussion with councilmen. I think we've got to set up how that discussion should happen, or who should be talking for the board to make sure that,
I'm going to introduce the topic first
okay.
with some phone calls. Dr. Louder's going to talk to the county, or the city
Okay.
manager.
Because what's the danger is all of us gets, because all of us know, we all know personally most of the councilmen, so
Yeah.
I don't want us to get out of control on it and start approaching until the conversation is at least,
Yeah, let the two of us introduce it to some folks, see what the temperature is. Because anytime you're going after somebody else's budget to help our own, you know, that's a difficult conversation.
so I'm going to put,
But
I'll put Ms. Burton.
just
Ms.
for
Furtenbaugh
starters,
and Dr. Louder, all right. All right, then I have I don't have anybody for staff development. Who is that? We just gonna leave that as it is? Okay, next, we're going to the board.
and Dr. Hill, do you want to?
I'm not sure how that parsed out, so I guess we have to talk to Kelly to figure out that, how we parsed it out in cabinet. Oh, that's probably a cabinet discussion we need to have.
Okay, so I'll just put cabinet.
Because we want to see how it's broken down.
All right, then I have the board, and I have Mindy Meals.
Mindy Mills.
And that's all I have at this point. And then I have legal. I have Brian Shaw is going to take a look.
Mhm.
Our obrigado.
Okay,
Is that it? Then I'll send you all a copy of this, and you'll have the
extra notes.
the form that I worked from.
Okay. So I don't believe we're going to be ready for any kind of vote next week. We could potentially do an update on anything that's learned. But it may be better just to wait until we gather more information. You guys good with that?
Yes.
Give it at least a month? Maybe two? I don't know, depending on how long it takes us to have conversations. Okay. Okay, so any further items tonight, or I'll take a motion to adjourn.
Second.
Mrs. Grimsey made the motion, Mr. Harrison made the second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you and good night to our viewing audience.